Welcome back to Website TV. I'm Ben Lefebvre, and today I'm with Aaron Bradley. So thank you very much for being with us today. I would like to ask you the first question about structured data markups, and I would like to know how important it is nowadays.
I think it's quite important as we look at the modern search engine result pages, where you see a variety of rich results, and most of those are generated on the basis of structured data markup. But I think even past that, and a lot of people fixate on rich snippets or what are now called rich results, structured data markup is a mechanism by which you're describing for the search engines not merely your documents, but what your documents talk about. So in the pre-structured data world, as it were, Google was primarily an index of web pages. Using structured data markup enables you to move past the index of web pages and to participate in a graph of entities, to have your business or information, the things that you talk about in your content actually be understood better by Google so that they can match your content to user queries rather than your web pages, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, it's mainly kind of internet user focus, obviously, because you give all the information in one place.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And in a very non-ambiguous fashion. Google doesn't have to figure out if you're saying a cat, whether that's the feline that we all know and love, or a large piece of mining equipment, because that you can make that explicit in your markup.
Okay. And is it applicable to every single industry, or is it more like for some industries than others, or how does it work? The
tangible benefits that different industries are going to realize from using structured data markup are different, especially as it pertains to things like rich results. But I'd say the base benefit extends to all industries because, again, you're providing information about what your content is about to the search engines.
Okay. Do you have more, how can I say that? For some industries, do you have more features than others, or how does
Certainly,
it work?
Yeah. Most notably e-commerce, where structured data is used to generate product-rich snippets. If you were a publisher of recipes, same thing. Now moving on from rich snippets to rich cards in the mobile results. So it does vary by industry, particularly in terms of those tangible benefits. Basically, those that are either in e-commerce on one hand or publishing on the other. Structured data markup is very important in the news ecosystem, particularly as Google has moved towards the support for accelerated mobile pages, which have a large number of required schema.org classes and properties that have to be included with the markup.
For the companies who would still be kind of reluctant to use those, what would be the consequences?
The consequences of using them or of not using them? Again, well, it's going to be less explicit to Google and other search engines what your content is about. Google will always try and parse unstructured data in order to make that same sort of sense of your content as it does when you provide them with structured data markup. Structured data markup serves as something of an express lane to giving Google that understanding of your content. So there's no, if you don't use structured data markup, it's not like there's a penalty involved, but you won't realize the benefits as much. And in some situations, it is absolutely required if you want to avail yourself of some of those rich results features, like rich snippets or the correct social logos in your knowledge graph card, things like that. So in a general way, no, Google's always going to try and understand your data anyway, but you're going to be better off by giving them that data unambiguously, and you need to in some circumstances in order to generate particular features in the search results.
So does that mean if you don't do it, Google will still try to find the right information and might get it wrong, and therefore it might not be good for your company then?
Yeah, and that's actually a good point. It impacts relevancy in terms of query matching. Google might return, it might not be reflected in, if you were to use, say, rank checkers, you might rank highly for terms that you want to, but it might be the wrong page, or it might be a mismatched query where Google isn't actually providing the best result in your page set for what you're looking for. And in the case of something, to go back with recipes, if you do a recipe query with a recipe intent, it's very, very rare these days that you're going to see in the first couple of pages of results recipes that aren't supported with structured data markup. It really does push you to the nether regions of Google search results, meaning page 2 and beyond. Yeah.
And what are the most common markups you can use?
Certainly product markup, recipe markup, local business markup. That's rather new, and Google is promising that they're going to expand the use of that. But right now you can still provide information about your business, things like logos, call numbers, and more recently place actions. So if your business allows your users to make a reservation or place an order, you'll see a button appearing directly in the mobile results for that. So there's a variety of different data types. Reviews, whether or not that's e-commerce oriented or not, those stars that you see in the search results are structured data powered. So those are probably the biggest and most common data types.
And is it available in all countries?
It is available in all countries. As far as I know, there are no regional restrictions on rich results, and certainly from Google's point of view, structured data is structured data, and it will happily consume it whenever you provide it to them.
And which ones are the less known, and you would say, oh, actually, you should maybe use them?
I think perhaps that I can relate that to the realm of schema.org development. Schema.org with recent releases changed their extension mechanism. So previously you had a limited number of types and properties that you were able to mark up your content with. These have gotten increasingly esoteric. You now have what are called hosted extensions, bib.schema.org, which is for bibliographic resources used by like libraries, auto.schema.org, which is used by the automotive industry. You can declare properties like seating capacity. There may not be very many tangible benefits at this point of using those sorts of terms. So there are kind of emerging vocabulary items that you can use, but may not provide you with that same benefit as the more common ones.
Okay. And are you aware of any other search engine doing that as well, or?
Well, schema.org is a standard supported by all the four major search engines: Google, Bing, Yandex, and Yahoo. So they all consume and try to make use of structured data. Google certainly makes the biggest use of it and is most demonstrative about how those are returned in the search results. But to a certain degree, they're used by all of those four search engines.
Okay. And any common mistakes you see, or?
Sure. I remember Dwayne Forster, when he was with Bing, spoke of, I forget whether it was a sizable minority or actually the majority of markup was actually had errors. So they tend to be syntax errors, which is very, very easy in inline markup syntaxes like microdata and RDFA. The rise of JSON-LD, JavaScript Object Notation Linked Data, which allows you to use code blocks that are entirely separated from the presentation layer rather than inline markup, helps in some regard. But it's probably syntax errors that are the most common. The other common mistake is that people try to use classes or properties that are inappropriate to the type of material that they're marking up, and so simply won't be respected by the search engines, or rather than clarifying things for them, are going to confuse them.
So Google will either disregard those mistakes or will get them in the wrong way.
It depends. Normally, inappropriate markup, or certainly syntactically bad markup, it will simply ignore. However, it certainly will assess whether you're trying to game the search results. This is very common, say, in review-rich snippets, where you're providing review results that look favorable to your company or some page that you're marking up. And it will do a check, an algorithmic check, to make sure that the data matches up with the reality of your site, and it will penalize you if it, basically by the removal of rich results, perhaps by some other measures, but it is possible to spam with structured data markup, and Google is cognizant of that and does look out for that.
If you had any tips to give to people who would like to implement those markups, apart from being patient, anything else?
Sure, I would absolutely. There are two primary reference sources that I would start with. One is the I forget, it was just changed in May of 2016, what used to be called the Structured Data Documentation in Google Developers, now under its own section. But it has very explicit information and instructions on the different data types that Google supports, and examples and preview generators, all that sort of thing. So study those and be aware of them. And secondly, because it is now the gold standard for vocabularies for structured data markup for the search engines, learn about schema.org, how it works, what its classes and properties are that are applicable to your business, and how you might be able to best leverage those available classes and properties that are relevant to you. It's really a combination of knowing what Google wants and knowing the standards that are involved. And then the third part of that, I guess, would be learn about the syntax that you're going to use, whether that's microdata, RDFA, or JSON-LD, all supported by Google. But in order to avoid errors and properly mark up your data, you need to know what you're doing syntactically, as well as in terms of vocabulary.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.